So with me today, I have, importantly, friend, and I'm putting that at the top of the list. I've got friend, author, editor, and lecturer, Mitzi Szereto. Mitzi, hello.
Hi, Ashley. I thought you said Fred. I'm thinking, was Fred supposed to be on?
Friend, bloody good friend, yeah. How long have we known one another now?
Oh, sorry?
How long have we known one another now? Is it more than 20 years?
Yeah, I guess if we disclose it, we'll have to kill each other, right?
Mitzi, for people watching this, which genre do you write in, and how do you define that genre?
Well, I'm currently, for the last, I'd say approximately 2 years, I've been full-time, full-on into true crime. And it's literally sucked my life and pretty much is a full-time occupation. I would say that true crime, I got into it by accident like I do a lot of things. And it was, I've done nonfiction before, and I define true crime as sort of nonfiction journalism. And I think one needs to approach it in that regard because we are dealing with real events here, and this is not really something that you should be twisting the truth on and perhaps skewing facts in a direction that isn't quite accurate. So I kind of call it nonfiction journalism, really, but it has to be a bit more engaging than perhaps your average newspaper article or very long form, long fiction piece for an academic or whatever.
So even though this is nonfiction, do you still find that there is a structure to a true crime story?
You know, I think everybody writes differently pretty much for every genre, we all write differently. Hopefully we do, or it would be very boring. But, you know, I might structure my pieces, my stories differently from others. You know, I'm doing anthology, so I'm working with lots of different writers, and everybody has their own way of telling a story and their own approach to a story. And I think that's really what's exciting is having all these different kinds of ways to tell a story. So, you know, I don't start out with a structure. I don't think I even ever have worked with a structure. I just am one of those people that it just goes and I just follow.
And yeah, it's interesting you talk about different voices as well in anthologies. I've completely gone off script here. I will get back onto the questions that I'd sent through to you in a moment. But yeah, with different voices, this is one of the things that I love about reading an anthology, because if you try out on a new author, in that case, you've made that investment and it might not be the right author for you. Whereas if you're going into an anthology of different voices, in that case, yeah, there might be a couple of people who you think, well, I can't follow the way that one's telling a story, but there's going to be 2 or 3 or 4 where you're thinking, I've just found my new favorite writer. So I do think there's an awful lot of quality, good things that I enjoy about anthologies. My next question was then, what's your writing schedule?
You know what? I am the worst person in the world to ask that. You know, I kind of find that, I mean, I suppose this is true for a lot of people, that life gets in the way and there's just so many things to do in a day just to keep your life going and your home going. But you know, just as an aside, I've been trying to get a crime novel written and I have to keep shelving it because true crime keeps drinking my blood. So, I mean, I sort of bounce around throughout the day, you know, I'll work on something for a bit, I'll do something else, I'll work on something for a bit. I've had wonderful experiences where I've literally gone upstairs. For some reason, I can work better upstairs. I have no idea why that is, and then I have gone into the zone and I feel like I need to do that more because I would get the content that I want to get out there. And it may seem like I'm producing a lot of content, but I pretty much feel like I'm like 4 or 5 years behind on my writing.
Gosh, I can relate to that. Yeah, there's so many things that I want to get done in a day, and yeah, the writing.
Yeah. Unless you can hire a personal assistant, or you've got a partner who's taking care of all the you know, crap of life. You know, I mean, I've heard of some writers, like I've got a colleague who has a book out right now, a crime novel, and it's doing really well. And he's zoomed into his second one, and he really finished it in record time. But I suspect his wife is probably behind the scenes getting the bills paid, getting the shopping done, getting the cleaning done, taking care of every single thing so he could focus on his book. And I don't think a lot of us have that luxury.
No, I mean, I've got Tracy who sort of like treats me like a giant baby and looks after me and pampers me and feeds me. Yet still, there aren't enough hours in the day.
Be careful she doesn't sell you on eBay.
She would be so tempted if she heard that. What's most important to you, plot or character?
You know, I was thinking about that when you sent me the list of questions that we'd be discussing. And it wasn't something I ever consciously do, but I think in my work, I tend to focus on character, really let things be character driven, especially in fiction. But even with true crime, obviously, we're dealing with characters here rather than plots. But when I think back on all the bits of fiction I've done, it has been character driven. And I think that the characters are the ones who are, you know, you're reading about. I mean, you have to have characters in a story. So I kind of give that a bit more of a focus, and that seems to be where my head is at when I start to write.
I completely get that. I mean, one of the anthologies that you produced was True Crime Serial Killers. And that's
Yeah.
that the right title, or was it the best of true crime serial killers?
The best new true crime story serial killers, yeah.
Yeah, and you look at serial killers, and yeah, if you're deciding about plot or character there isn't a what's the plot of Ed Gein or what's the plot of Ted Bundy, but they're characters. We know who they are and what they are. So yeah, I can completely understand why you're falling on that side of the fence with that one.
Well, also when it's with true crime and you're dealing with these individuals, I mean, you can't just write a story about murder after murder after murder. There needs to be something about who's committing these murders. Why are they committing these murders? What is their psychology? What is their pathology? You know what I'm saying? If without that, there's really nothing there.
Yeah, I think the psychology is quite fascinating when we start looking at some of these individuals. I mean, the horrible people, this isn't me sort of like saying, oh, yeah, what an interesting person this serial killer is. But yeah, the psychology, what actually drives somebody to do that, it is quite fascinating, really, yes. So, horrible question for you. What piece of writing advice would you give to anybody who's just starting out?
Well, I flippantly say, and it's perhaps not so flippant, get your plumbing certificate. But since that would put us out of business if we're teaching creative writing, we don't want to say that. You know, I think you really need to be realistic. I think you need to know how this business is and what you're up against. And if you've got the stamina and the heart and the guts to do it, because it's not an easy road to travel, and it's not getting easier, it's getting harder every single year. But yeah, I think you need to take a long hard look at what you write. I think you need to focus on your work, not seeing what everyone else is doing and trying to say, oh, I want to, you know, I'm going to try to do a book like so and so, because you'll never get ahead of the game when you do that. Make your work the best it can be, and get your voice, you know, develop your voice, and try to find something that makes you an individual voice, and don't give up. If you really believe this is for you and you genuinely believe you have the talent to do this, don't give up, because I have, you know, I'm living proof of having been kicked down many, many times, and I just basically gave a 2-finger salute to that. And I had a lot of self-belief, and that's not the same thing as arrogance, I should add, because I'm not arrogant, but I have self-belief.
You're not arrogant in the slightest. I completely know that. And yeah, being realistic and having self-belief, definitely getting up when you get kicked down. Yeah, I can't echo those thoughts loudly enough, because that is just so important. And yeah, you're a testament. How many titles have you got out there? Are you a sort of person who can remember off the top of your head?
No, I can't remember, but I know that it's probably around 30, maybe. I mean, I've been at this for a couple of decades, and so yeah, I would probably say close to 30.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like it, but you know, if I really look back at, you know, other stuff that's no longer in existence, yeah. But yeah, I think you've outnumbered me.
Yeah, but that's only because I do reprints and things like that.
Oh, you can't reprints. That's cheating.
It's cheating. Yeah, that's how you get ahead. You cheat. Yeah.
Yeah, cheat. Yeah, you know what? What I used to tell my creative writing students in the UK. Read the book "The Information" by Martin Amis. Now I know he's a bit of a tosser, but that's such an interesting book, and it really kind of shows about how some of the hypocrisy of this business. So check that book out and see if you still want to write.
Which one's that? Martin Amis's which one?
The Information.
The Information.
Yeah, it's about writers. It's about one writer who's a total incompetent, in no talent, becomes a huge bestseller. I mean, isn't that the way it goes? But
yes, it is. Yes. Right, I read that one. Yeah, then definitely. Who do you read for pleasure?
You know, I had to go look up in my Goodreads account because I don't remember anything and who I read. It's like when I binge watch TV series, and when I'm finished, I can't remember anything that I've watched, the names of them. But I'm currently reading a book by Alex Finley, and he was kind enough to give me an endorsement for my next book. So I'm like, he's a crime novelist, and so I'm reading him right now. Before that, I'd had a long gap of not reading because I just could not find the time. And generally, it's like 12 midnight when I finally start reading, sometimes at 1 a.m. But before that, I read your wonderful book about the serial killer guy, the serial killer fanboy, I called him. Other authors that I've read that I kind of like, I like psychological thrillers, and I always have, dating back to Ruth Rendell. She was one of the first people I used to read voraciously, even well before I moved to the UK. I read her a lot. Tarryn Fisher, Liv Constantine, Ruth Ware, Simone St. James, Sarah Pinborough, Charlotte Duckworth, and I actually like music memoirs. I'm a big sucker for stuff from the 1960s. I just love that era, especially in music. But I really enjoyed Elton John's memoir. Patti Smith had a wonderful memoir talking about life in New York when she was with Robert Mapplethorpe, the artist. And I've got on my radar, I understand Robbie Densmore from The Doors has a memoir. So I'm a sucker for The Doors. So I really want to read that.
It's interesting, the list that you've given me of names there, there's quite a lot of female writers on that. Is this deliberate?
I noticed that. Yeah. I just, I don't know. It's not that I'm actually targeting female writers. It's just that perhaps a lot of psychological thrillers happen to be written by women.
I've got to admit, when it comes to my favourite psychological thrillers, it is females that pop out. Ruth Rendell. Her work is just outstanding. I don't think I've read.
I was lucky enough to meet her in London at a authors write the author ALCS meeting. So which and then she passed away sadly, but she was quite a legend in this field. I think she really put psychological thrillers on the map. Yeah,
she, to my mind, she defined the genre really. She's what somebody says psychological thriller to me, and the first thing that pops into my head is like a Ruth Rendell story. Rendell, however the hell you pronounce
Rendell. It. I think it's Rendell.
Yes. So you're currently editing the Best New True Crime series. What do you look for?
Best New True Crime Stories series.
Edit my notes, right? You're currently editing the Best New True Crime Stories series. What do you look for in a true crime story when you're compiling an anthology, and what do you think readers want from an anthology of true crime?
Well, I'm currently, my 5th volume just came out. I've just delivered the 6th, and I'm working on the 7th, and each one has a different theme. As we mentioned, serial killers. The one that's just out is Partners in Crime. So obviously I'm looking for material that's going to fit in that theme. I leave it very open-ended from writers when I put out a submission call and I get people, they pitch me their ideas because, I don't want 10 stories pitched to me on the exact same case. That's going to be 10 less possible people I can put in the book. But I'm looking for something that tells a story in an original way. There's some sort of a unique spin on it. You know, true crime is really hot right now, and there are so many podcasts, there's so many television series. It's really hard to find anything that hasn't already been discussed and dissected. So I put the burden on the writers to say, well, okay, tell us the story, but frame it in such a way that it's fresh again. And if there's something new and interesting that you can add to it. One huge plus is when writers pitch me a story and they actually have a personal involvement with the case. I mean, that's always great. And I always have, each book's got some writers in it that have had something that's touched them or they've been involved in some way. So that's a big plus for me. And those generally do get included in the book.
Brilliant. So yeah, and what do you think readers are actually wanting from an anthology of true crime?
Anthologies, specifically with true crime. Well, you know, I think true crime has changed a lot. It had a bit of a bad rap before because it was a bit, you know, schlocky and sleazy and exploitive. And I think readers most readers, not all, but most readers are looking for something a bit more sophisticated, something with some actual analysis, something with some humanity, something that's not exploiting everybody all over again. Whether it's the victim or even the perpetrator for that matter, something with some, you know, balance to it, seeing, you know, like we were talking about psychology earlier, some way of understanding why these crimes were committed and what made, if there is anything to explain about why it was, you know, why these crimes were committed. But just something they can take away, something to think about. And I think there's stories in each book that gives readers pause and might make them reevaluate their ideas about specific things. For instance, I've had stories dealing with spree killings. And, you know, in the United States where everyone loves their guns, they don't seem to do anything about gun control. And I'm hoping that some of these stories that show examples, like for instance, the case down in Australia where they banned guns after that spree shooting. Yeah. People need to wake up, and I'm hoping they might read these stories and say, you know what, that's other countries have managed to do these things. Why can't we? So I hope they think a bit.
That would be really, really nice. I mean, part of me is thinking that if that ever was going to happen, it would have happened after Sandy Hook, because all those poor unfortunate children dying should have been a wake-up call for people. But yeah, I get what you mean.
It's like a daily event in America. You know, it seems like it's never going to change. I hate to be a downer on that, but I don't see how many more times, you know, but, you know, maybe if someone thinks a bit about it, changes an opinion, you know.
But also, I think you make a very valid point that true crime did used to have that sexploitation feel to it, that it would sort of be there for titillation. But nowadays, the podcasts that I've listened to about true crime do focus on the psychological, and they do focus on more, as you say, more of a sophisticated approach rather than just, ooh, and there was a scantily clad lady who got strangled by her own stockings.
Yeah.
Obviously with a killer wielding them, not just...
Yeah, it's always like a sexy woman who's lying on the ground, you know, and I think, you know, people don't want that anymore. And also the focus on the victims, you know, they're in the story too, you know, who are these people that have been affected and their lives. But as I said, you know, sensitively told, because you don't want to victimize the people. I mean, I wrote a story about a guy, a gentleman robber, and you know, he basically ended up financially in big trouble, and he turned to crime, which was really against his, you know, he was like a churchgoer Texan, you know, this was just not something you would do. But I had to realize that, okay, he died, but I believe his wife is still alive and his kids. And I was, you know, really conscious of that when I was portraying him in the story, because I didn't want them to feel I was exploiting their family members' misery and crimes. And I think I told it in a way that people would read it and actually think, you know, that could be me. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, that sensitivity is one of the things that I always admired about you anyway. So, Ben, right. So, since I first met you, I've always admired your skills at marketing and promotion. How important is marketing and promotion to the contemporary writer? And what advice would you give to a young, yeah.
That's one of the reasons I don't have enough time to write. And I think that is a big battle right now with in this industry. I'm finding that aside from trying to get my books done, I am spending more time, and too damn much time, on the marketing and promotion. And I think every writer should go into this thinking, don't expect your publisher to do shit for you, because they probably won't. And I know that sounds harsh, but that's the reality. Publishers tend to put their big push and their big marketing budgets behind, say, Stephen King, who really doesn't need a big marketing push. I mean, Stephen King could write his name on a scrap of paper and that would be a bestseller. That's just the way it is. But that's not the luxury most of us have. So you need to get out there and you need to promote your books. You need to have a social media presence. And I know some people are anti-social media, and I could understand in some ways why, but I think that as a writer, you have to be out there. You've got to be on Twitter. You've got to be on Facebook. Instagram's become important. I was a bit late to the game for Instagram. For some reason, I just, wasn't there. But just to have your presence. Obviously, you want to promote your books on social media, but you have to at least do other things too, or people will be sick to death of you. You have to kind of like engage people and sort of befriend them in a way so that they like you as an individual and say, well, I like so-and-so, and maybe I'll check out so-and-so's new book. So social media. As I said, you can approach, for instance, book reviewers and book bloggers. Bloggers are usually easier than, say, approaching a reviewer at the New York Times or the Guardian, because they probably won't talk to you. They generally want your publisher to send something, and they probably have a few miles high pile of books. But you can approach bloggers. Most of them are very receptive to hearing from authors individually and offer a copy of your book for them to read. As a little bit of a caveat, I should say, be careful about just sending out willy-nilly a PDF copy of your book. If your publisher doesn't give you, say, a watermarked copy, because mine does, so I have like watermarked versions that I might send out myself. I think there's like free online watermark programs so you could watermark it, because the problem is we've got a lot of piracy, and you don't want your book to end up on a piracy site. It probably will anyway, but if you can cut down cut down a little bit. There's also things where there's some sort of a system where they could like number each thing. And I don't know, I haven't done that, but I've heard that exists. So yeah, like I said, you need to be aware of the fact that you're going to have to be hustling your books yourself, because don't expect people to be invested in it at your publishing level unless you're really lucky.
That does sound like a hell of a lot of hard work.
It is. It's ridiculous, and it's so time consuming and frustrating. But I mean, I don't know any other way around it. I mean, I wish I could take a step back from it, because it's really killing me, and it's really taking up my creative time. But, you can't afford to drop the ball. You just can't. You have to just keep the momentum going. And even if your book came out 6 months ago, don't stop talking about it. Just, keep that going.
But you do this so well. You are a natural at this. You just look like you're all over Facebook. You've got newsletters. You are in communication with people regularly. Honest to God, you make it look so effortless.
Well, I don't know how that, I don't think it's, yeah, well, I'm fooling you then, because it certainly isn't effortless. And there's just so many voices out there. I use the analogy like a bunch of people in a room screaming, my book is out, my book is out. And the message is getting lost because everyone is screaming the same message. So it's hard. There's a lot of places online that give supposed marketing advice. Take them with a grain of salt, but check around. Maybe you might get an idea from somewhere. you know, that something you haven't tried. For instance, like on Instagram, I've started doing reels, and those are quite fun. You know, those are like those shorty little videos, you know, maybe a few 10 seconds, 20 seconds, whatever, that you put out. It could be something you've made, you could be in it. You could create something, you know, with a video program. You know, so those are fun, and hashtags, obviously. I've noticed on Instagram when I check my posts, and I find that my hashtags are bringing in like maybe 60%, 65, 70% of people who are not following me, but they're seeing my stuff. And that's because of the hashtags.
Thank you. I hadn't even thought of hashtags. I'm an idiot.
Yeah, it's, I know, one more thing to do. One more thing to do. There's always one more thing to do.
There's so many things, it's easy to overlook them. I mean, you've not even mentioned TikTok.
I know, I was going to. You know, I'm not on TikTok. I've been a bit apprehensive about TikTok, and I understand, okay, everyone's talking about, what is it they call it, TikBook or whatever is the phrase that's being used. Yeah. From what I'm hearing, TikTok's working really well if your demographic is like kids and young adults, if you're writing for that audience. I'm not really convinced it's moving books for people that write for an adult audience. I don't know if that's changing, but from what I hear, it's more really, really young people. So if your books are not really geared to very young readers, I'm not sure if it's going to be for you, but give it a shot. You never know.
And yeah, again, this is it's one of the reasons why I would always try and pick your brains about this anyway, because you understand where the markets are and who the audiences are on these various things. Going back to the subject of true crime, how do you verify the veracity of each story you receive?
There's another time sucker, Ashley. You know, the old days, publishers had fact checkers, and they would diligently check all the stuff in a nonfiction book to make sure it was correct, which is also good for legal reasons. Magazines and newspapers did this too. It's my understanding, I think there's a handful of places that still do that, like at the New Yorker magazine. I believe they use fact checkers. And there might be some other very, very high profile magazines that do, but publishers have pretty much got rid of fact checkers because of the cost. So this burden falls on, guess who?
Ted.
The author. Yeah. So all my stories that come in, I am the fact checker. I check everything as thoroughly as I possibly can check that. I'll be back and forth with writers because, I mean, when I'm editing a book, trust me, I'm editing it. I'm not sitting around collecting stories and then that's it. You just stick them in there. I go through everything meticulously and edit the work. And as I said, fact check it. So I'll be back and forth with writers, you know, maybe once, maybe twice, maybe three times, 4 times. It depends how many times it needs to be done to make sure things are as accurate as they possibly can be. Verified from legitimate sources, not from Joe Blow, the blogger, because that's not a legitimate source. You know, there needs to be some, you know, legitimate newspapers that would, you know, not the Sun, but I mean, you could probably figure the Guardian is a safe bet, you know, that sort of thing. And I put a disclaimer in the book because I have to, you know, that, you know, we, as of publication, it's as accurate as it could possibly, as we know it to be, but we don't take any liability if there's an omission or whatever, you know, for legal reasons. There are some true crime writers, I understand that have written like long form true crime, like a whole novel length or longer piece. And there are some people who have actually hired fact checkers. This is very expensive. I can't think of the name of the author offhand, but I know she's probably paid maybe $3,000-4,000 US dollars per book to get a fact checker. That's just not affordable to most people. It certainly is not to me because I have to pay my contributors and I need to make a few pence and cents off the book. So obviously I can't afford a fact checker for paying maybe more than what the book would even yield. So yeah, I have to do it, and I can't trust everybody that what they're turning into me is accurate. You know, sometimes they may pick something up and there's a mistake, and it's been going, you know, perpetuated throughout several sources. So I have to be the police officer here.
That's one hell of a lot of work to, yeah.
Well, I said I did say it's sucking my blood, didn't I?
Yeah, between between marketing and fact checking. How do you find time to write?
I don't. I told you I got this crime novel that I can't seem to do anything with. I mean, I got really hot into it and had my zone happen a few times, and I'm determined to get back to it. But it's really hard. Even with the true crime books, I write a piece for my books as well. So I'm like the last person after I've done everybody's thing, edited everybody, fact checked everyone. Then I finally get to doing my story. And, it's hard work. It's not for lazy people.
No, it's not. It's definitely not. So, Mitzi, what are you currently working on, and where can we find more of your work?
I just have a book out. I'll flash it for you since we're here. This is the new book.
That's a gorgeous cover.
Yeah, thanks. This is the fifth book, The Best New True Crime Stories, Partners in Crime. I've just delivered I think on Thursday, I just sent it in, which was the sixth book, which is called Unsolved Crimes and Mysteries. And that's coming out in the autumn. And I'm working on the seventh book. So books are available all over the place. You can check out my website. I've got a list of everything, mitziserato.com, and you can see my spelling on there, so I don't have to spell it out. And I'm on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and even LinkedIn, and probably some other places I forgot. I have a YouTube channel, a couple of them actually. So I'm always working, and there's no rest for the wicked.
Mitzi, thank you so much. That's been greatly appreciated.
Thank you.